Hi, my name is Ayrton Beccarini. For 2 years I've been collaborating with the karting journal Vroom magazine, for which I take care of the driving games and simulator section Vroom Games. I am also the test driver, and in addition to reviewing the materials tested on the track, I also deal with video ranging from real driving experiences to virtual ones. I owe an important name to my father, a karting racer in the 80s, an acquaintance and admirer of the Brazilian kart driver Ayrton da Silva, who then became more famous as Ayrton Senna. With karting it was the love at first sight. I started to browse the magazines of Vroom when I was just 11 months old, and at the age of 1 I started driving an electric car before even learning to walk. When I was just 2.5 years old I had my first kart, and at the age of 7, in 2009, I started doing my first races. I ran until 2014, working as a test driver for the manufacturer Italcorse. In all my debuts in the different categories, I got the pole position, and my best result was to win the Italian 60 Super Mini Championship of the UPN Federation. My second passion, started when I was just 4, was for PCs and consoles, and consequently for driving games. I also like arcade games, but I especially love simulators. In my short career as a pilot, it was very helpful to me the game R Factor, with which I could train on some tracks very far from the city where I live, such as the Lonato track. Later I bought the Boss Track Builder program, and thanks to a graphic expert friend I was able to realize many of the tracks I would have run on. This allowed me to learn the tracks at a distance, and at the same time to save a lot of the budget that would have been used then for the many travels. Karting is recognized as a discipline of motoring, even by the International Automobile Federation, confirming itself as the only school to embark on the pilot career. Besides Senna and Prost, all the Formula 1 drivers, and in particular those who can boast more titles of world champions such as Schumacher, Alonso, Vettel and Hamilton, have had an important past in karting. The great professionalism necessary to drive at high levels to performance and the ease of handling the vehicles make karting an autonomous and prestigious discipline where many motorsport enthusiasts of all ages pour out to find great emotions. Former F1 driver Siegfried Stover, psychology graduate and owner of one of the most important safe and fast driving schools in Europe, writes in his book, "Where the wind is always blowing, the story of a pilot begins with a kart which is a school of agonies, but also of life. In karting you compete in early years when the karter is still forming, and you face even mature and therefore more experienced opponents. In kart you experience driving, tuning, tactics, overtaking, races, but also fatigue and fears, ingenuity and shrewdness. Today, regular training with kart is the most popular trend for those who practice motor racing. Many pilots of the various categories, from GT to the open wheels, prefer the use of the powerful kart with the gearbox Case 1 for their own psychophysical training. This kart, thanks to the weight-power ratio, put a strain on the cerebral driving tensions. Actually, prestigious drivers like Barrichello and Massa do not disdain to compete in the various international single-brand championships. In the past, Ayrton Senna, in his second year in single-seater, and Schumacher, already an acclaimed champion of Formula 1, have tried the challenge of the Karting World Championship, which is a sign of respect for the missed title, probably remaining their dreams. Among all the pilots of the F1 world, the first karting supporter was certainly Ayrton Senna. In more than one interview, the dear departed Brazilian driver defends the kart fundamental for training and as a future motoring champion.
Okay, but I have one important message. Very important message. Go-kart is the best school children can have to learn how to drive.
子供が運転を習うのにゴーカートというのは最良の学校ですと。
It is a safe sport,
とっても安全な
healthy,
スポーツで健康的で、
and the spirit of competition and challenging is
競
very
争とか
pure.
チャレンジするっていうような精神を養わせるとっても純粋なもので
So I'm very happy that in Japan, go-kart activity
だから
is
日本で
growing
も
very
ゴーカー
much
トの人気が高まってるっていうのは
with
とっても嬉しいし、
with
特に
youngsters
若い人たち、
who will become the champions of the Formula One, future Formula One.
将来その中から F1 のチャンピオンも生まれるでしょう。
It is well known that F1 stables use very sophisticated simulators to train their drivers in times away from the Grand Prix, to show them new tracks and recently to simulate assets, aerodynamics, gear ratios and race strategies. Few, however, know that many real pilots do not disdain to train their minds to stress of the race by participating in real-line and virtual racing championships. If you want to tell two names among many, I would like to mention the new consecrated talent of Max Verstappen and the rising star Lando Norris, both with a noteworthy karting past and with a great passion for virtual competitions, being official drivers in the #1 virtual team in the world. All this is a confirmation that there is a link between karting and driving simulation. Well, I think that in a very near future the next champions of motorsport will be athletes who will reap their experience on the real tracks and integrate their preparation on driving simulator. There will be younger pilots with an age range of 7 to 13 years who will mainly use the kart simulators on the market, such as Kart Racing Pro, R Factor 2 and those closer to the shift of the car that will be directed to Assetto Corsa, e-racing and equally R Factor 2, to adapt their style to driving karts. Get familiar with the gears, with the pitch and the roll, almost non-existent effects on the kart, and especially learn the most used tracks in different leagues. Driving games were born in the 80s when the young Geoff Drummond was working at Revs, a game that simulated a Formula 3 car on the Silverstone track. From that moment on, the driving games received an overall development both for the graphic and for the physical engine that allows them more and more realistically replicate the reactions of the car inside the game. The development has always been aimed to create more and more realistic games from every point of view, until driving games was divided into two different categories, intended for different types of players. Once achieving considerable results with the progress of physical engines, we have come to a greater and more realism in video games, leading developers to change their products to make them more accessible to a wider audience, making the physical engines less realistic, but consequently the game easier and playable by everyone. The driving games are divided by arcade, intended for the general public, for example the F1 series, and the real simulators, providing a realistic physics for the real fans, such as R Factor 2 or Assetto Corsa. Lately, the simcade are also spreading, a type of games halfway between the two extremes that can provide a higher simulation than a normal arcade, according to the taste of the player. The biggest example of simcade is the famous Project Cars. The best known arcade games are of course the series of Need for Speed and F1. In fact, they do not have strong realistic features, but they are really adapted to be played by anyone without difficulty. The arcade usually focuses on graphics, career and multiplayer, making the game more appealing to the average motor enthusiast user. Although the arcade is intended for the general public, there are also games where go-karts are present, often ignored by the developers as they are little known or of little interest to the players. In Project Cars itself there are go-karts, but also in the old Toka Race Driver or in Michael Schumacher Racing World Kart back in 2002. Differently from the arcade, which are generally known among the general public, the simulators are little known among the same audience, but in the niche audience of real fans they are really appreciated and well known. The most famous and important simulators to date are undoubtedly the Italian Assetto Corsa, R Factor 2, iRacing and Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsport, even if the latter two are not entirely simulators, but have different arcade characteristics. As for the karting simulators, we have Kart Racing Pro, that currently proves to be one of the most followed kart simulators by the enthusiast community. Even if there are not many valid simulators entirely dedicated to kart, it is actually in development Kartcraft, that should be one of the biggest kart sim of these times, but to date there are still no news on the release date of the game. For the rest, we can find the kart also in R Factor 2 and Assetto Corsa through fan-made mods. Parallel to the evolution of the graphics and the physical engine, developers know that to sell many driving games and make them more long-lived must also have excellent multiplayer characteristics. Good quality of online matches has encouraged the multiplication of dedicated servers, and with this the birth of championships, some of which for private initiatives of sim racing portals, others sponsored by companies that produce peripheral devices, including Logitech and Fanatec. Others organized from the same developers as the iRacing World Racing Series and Project Cars. Others even sponsored by the FIA, such as the Codemasters eSport based on F1 2017 and the new eRock. The grid made importance has in fact attracted the interest of the operators of the real motorsport. There are initiatives such as the World's Fastest Gamer, organized by McLaren, a competition created with the aim of finding the fastest sim racer and giving him the opportunity to drive with an official seat in the stable. Thanks to this, the Dutch Rudy van Buren, former kartist, in addition to the title, has earned a real job as a test simulator as well as official virtual pilot. Fernando Alonso, already active for the homonymous line of winning karting chassis, has recently established his own virtual team by engaging the Turkish Cem Bolukbazi, also with a karting record 5th in the finals of the Abu Dhabi Sport. There are also teams such as the aforementioned Red Line, which have been operating in the sector for years, and that include among its pilots champions of real motorsport like Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, both come from karting, and simulation champions like Gregor Hutto, considered the strongest virtual pilot of all time, and Bono Huis, winner of Visa Vegas E-Race, organized by Formula E. Remaining in terms of Formula E, in 2018 the official Audi team will continue to simulate with the drivers Di Grassi and Daniel Abt the whole days of competition to their very advanced simulator. We found that many pilots use the simulator, and we have seen that former karting players are dedicated to online competitions. But a new phenomenon is slowly taking place, and that is to earn a place in the real races thanks to the results achieved in the virtual world. Sony opened this road for the first time in the past with its game Gran Turismo, that thanks to the GT Academy project in collaboration with Nissan gave the possibility to virtual pilots like Lucas Ordonnier, Jan Mardenborough and Jordan Tresson to try with the excellent results in the real leagues. Tyler Hudson and Paulo Kusheba, both experienced sim racers in racing championship, have recently competed in the real Dream Stock Cars Dream Challenge, giving the specialists of the category out of time. More specifically about cars, we find Super 1 British eSport Championship, a virtual competition on Air Factor 2 eSport that imitates the British Royal Championship, and is taken as a parallel championship following the same circuits and dates as the real counterpart. What do you need to play simulators and driving games at their best? PC or console? First of all, you have to choose your own gaming platform. The various driving games are present in greater quantities on PC, but the most popular can also be found on consoles. Some of them are exclusive for consoles, such as Gran Turismo is an exclusive PlayStation. The best choice is obviously to use the PC for greater professionalism, video quality, vastness of titles, and especially for the ability to download unofficial mods and add-ons that could add a circuit or a category of vehicles that in the original game is not present. However, is it true that a PC requires more maintenance than a console? To install mods are often required complicated steps, and above all, buy a good gaming PC is more expensive than consoles. For those who do not have too many needs, playing on PlayStation or Xbox is surely a good choice, while those who want something more and make the most of the driving simulator's possibilities, it is recommended to use a PC. Once you have chosen a platform, you can proceed with buying a steering wheel to better enjoy the simulation guide. As for the freedom of speech, also in this case there is a difference between the cheaper and the more expensive products that provide greater sensitivity, more realistic force feedback and great steering precision. Obviously, almost in any case, with the steering wheel are included the pedals, and the more the product is of quality, the greater the sensitivity of the pedals, which sometimes are also without a pedal for the clutch in the simplest models. Important brands to mention are Trustmaster, Logitech and Elite Fanatec. Finally, the last requirement for playing a simulator is the driving post. Obviously it is optional, but I suppose it's quite uncomfortable to mount the steering wheel on a table and sit on a chair playing. For this reason, it is always recommended to use a driving position. There are many on the market, ranging from simple seats with support for the steering wheel to real cabins with spaces to mount everything, up to the most professional dynamic station that, synchronized with the game, simulate the movements of the frame and of the various forces that affect the pilot. Confirm that the use of the simulator offers great advantages, but for those pilots already experienced and for first beginner, we will see those available in the market that are useful for karting enthusiasts. First, for a new driver, it will be advisable to train with a kart that simulates the one closest to the kart category that he will drive on the real tracks, depending on the age. This is because the power-weight ratio, the tire weight and the type of compound affect the driving style. Basically, driving a 60 mini kart with narrow tires and a little power available means finding the right balance between doing a little road and going through the corners without too much dropping the engine. Differently, a 125 OK kart does a double power with a completely different management of the accelerator and brake, obligating to use all the extension of the track both in and out. The possibility of having a replica of the circuits where you will have to race allows to improve the trajectories and the braking points, and helps to identify the overtaking points. Then, having available a lot of tracks allows to learn most of the turn typologies, allowing consequently an ease of learning when you will run on a new tracks. Among the advantages of a real simulator that imitates the physical behavior of the vehicle, it must be included the function that allows to vary the weather conditions, and in particular the possibility of simulating the wet track conditions. The digital simulator should therefore include several kart categories, impossibly replicating those ones used in most popular championships. It should have a relevant number of tracks, possibly those ones most used in international calendars. It should be open to model wars who often develop vehicles and tracks of excellent quality. It should include the management of the track conditions, not limited to changing the temperature and the switch between the water and the rain, but also recreating the effects of wheels consumption and of the consequent effects on the frame behavior. It cannot be missed a garage section, where simulating all the possible variations of the setup, as hardness of axles, characteristics, corners of the front spindles, road width, position of the seat, type of rims, etc. etc. Finally, it will be great to have virtual competitors with an appropriate level of AI to allow the pilot to simulate races alone. Actually, this is a type of product that does not exist, but there are two good quality products available on the market. Kart Racing Pro is a simulator dedicated only to karts that offers what could be defined as an almost complete experience on the world of virtual karting. With KRP, it is possible to train and get acquainted with the setup of the go-kart, being able to change almost all the settings of the frame, the tire pressure, the pinion and the crown ratio, and so on. You can insert circuits, graphics and vehicles, made by the modders. It has a good management of atmospheric conditions that allows you to progressively change from sunny to completely wet. Unfortunately, there is no possibility of competing offline against pilots controlled by the computer, and lacks a function that replicates the effect of the tire on the track. In practice, the transition from the track without wheel consumption to the completely wheel-consumed track. Currently, except for the 60 Mini and the Case 1 that are very corresponding to reality, the karts available are not OKJ and OK, but the old KF3 and KF1. Air Factor 2 is an excellent simulator that includes a variety of vehicles and circuits available. Among these are also the karts and some dedicated track. Even here, being a real simulator, the karts have a physics very similar to reality, and therefore it is a valid alternative to Kart Racing Pro. RF2 offers two modes of competition, online and offline, and you have a wide choice of settings to program your own race, fine-tune your vehicle and change the difficulty and the skill of artificial intelligence that is very advanced and realistic. Being also a car simulator, the replica of the typical car setup is missing, as the most used kart categories, but it has excellent graphics. Unluckily, the developers, to enhance their software, need funds, and these are related to sales, so the greater the number of purchases, the better the simulator evolution in time. I wish that one or more developers will leverage on the collaboration of a real car driver that can support them in taking the best path to choose to create the ideal simulator, including all the aforementioned features. So this is it. You can find me on Room Games, on Room Magazine, on my YouTube channel Ayrton Karting Sim Racing, and on my Facebook page, Ayrton Megherini Kart Test Driver.